stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roger, Bob, would you like to say grace?
I did last time.
No, you didn't.
No, I might have.
Bob did it last time.
We'll bow our heads. Father, thank you for allowing us to come before you again so we can learn more about our missions here at Civil Air Patrol. But we also want to take and pray for those families who have lost homes in the Hemet area and who've been disposed of their family possessions and their property. We ask that you give guidance to them, give them strength. Be with those people at Big Bear that are still fighting their fire. But we also pray and thank you for the rain that helps settle our land and provides us with needed water. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Bob. Hey, does anybody know, did the rain put out the Hemet fire?
No.
Fires?
No, it's
but
still,
they got control of some of it.
it's still about 60%.
Wow.
And then there was a big fire off of Cactus in the freeway yesterday. It was 10 acres. You can hear the explosions going off in this black column of smoke. It just filled the whole valley. But what it was cardboard and containers, and it was in this storage area off of
Propane tanks?
Meridian. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it started about 1:30, and we walked over to the flight line to see it, and it was still on the other side. And at 5 o'clock, it was still burning.
Wow.
But this morning paper said it was 10 acres of cardboard and containers.
That, we've had so many fires in the last couple of years, just devastating.
Yeah. But anyway, as long as people try and keep safe, it's tough.
Yeah, and some mudslides happening too. So the rain, although we want it, sometimes is as devastating as fire. All right, so today is safety night. I'll give you updates on what was happening over the past week. One event I attended to was First Responders Appreciation Day at school here at Church on California Avenue. I was invited by Cadet Squadron out of Corona to do that, and it was nice. Besides me, I cannot count as first responder per se, but there were sheriff representatives and former military. So we talked to the kids about different roles in first responders. I specifically talked about Civil Air Patrol and what adults and kids can do within our organization. Largely tailored my speech to future cadets. Actually, a number of children were already signed up with that squadron. So I think it was great experience for me to talk to the community about services we do at Civil Air Patrol. We probably can count as aerospace education event for the public. I still, speaking of aerospace education, I'm still asking for volunteer to step up and take the role of aerospace education officer. It's important role, we have to have it. I will continue filling in as much as I can in that role. And if anyone would like to pick it up, please talk to me, Mike, or Chris. We will guide you in the right direction how to become an effective aerospace education officer. That update, and I guess the reason for celebration, I finally completed my Form 5 on 182 aircraft. So I'm checked out on 206, 182, and G1000 endorsement as well. So the only thing missing is 206 turbo. If ever I have an option to get that done, maybe I'll just drive to San Diego and take care of that one day. But again, sharing the experience is not that difficult. You just need to understand the process and go with the flow. I will distribute a video from a squadron at Santa Monica, which is great summary of steps involved in onboarding as a pilot for Civil Air Patrol. It has every single item you need to deal with outlined in great detail with references to e-services and specific examples of what needs to be done. Again, if anything is unclear, reach out to me directly, email, phone call, Chris, Mike, we are here to help. Terry Pratt is a great resource. I hope he can come to our meetings one day and give his help in that direction. But first steps, just completing the onboarding required classes, get level 1 done, get ground handling done, get basic emergency services class on access done, and we will help you with the rest of the steps. So once all the prerequisites filled in, you can start booking the flights with one of the CAP instructors, and we can again reinforce how to identify a CAP instructor in the area. And essentially the good thing is they are very flexible. You just need to reach out to as many of them as you would like, and the first one responding and agreeing on timeline with you, just go with him. Trent Ferris is a great one, but you don't have to go just with him. You can go one flight with Trent, one with someone else. So once you complete the required steps, you can schedule a check ride. Yes.
What is usually the length of lesson?
Well, it's really up to you, since you will be paying for the first lesson, meaning that you are paying the rental rate for the aircraft and for the gas. And that first lesson is giving a baseline to the instructor on what you need to work on. With that baseline established, we had in the current year budget allocated for 5 onboarding flights funded by Air Force. So that is your kind of idea how long it takes, and each flight I believe capped not to exceed 2 hours, if I'm not mistaken, but we can verify that.
How many hours do you have to have before you qualify for the onboarding?
So right now that requirement is waived, so there is no specific number of hours required to become a CAP VFR pilot. All you have to have is a private pilot license. To become mission transport pilot, you need to have 150 hours, 175 or 150? 150.
Sorry, pardon me, but I believe the minimum hours
VFR CAP pilot is 100 hours total time.
Cap VFR?
Yeah, CAP VFR, not transport mission pilot.
That was waived for the period of time. Yeah, we can check that, but I have seen the emails from the wing indicating that that requirement currently is not in effect.
It may have changed.
So we definitely, I'll be more than happy to validate that. And for mission transport pilot, I believe it's 150 hours, if I'm not mistaken. PIC time.
Did that change? Because
What's the
it's
200 one? I know there's one at 200.
200 is cadet orientation flights.
Oh, okay.
You have to have 200
Did
PIC.
that change recently? Because it's 100 hours PIC, 50 hours of cross country.
Okay, then maybe
so
that's
you can have your 50 hours of cross country inside of that.
inside that. Okay, so that's 100 hours
And
PIC.
for CAP VFR pilot, anything less than 100 hours PIC. I don't think there's a current minimum. I don't think there is.
Currently, there is
So
none.
to get you flying, you need
A minimum of 100 hours, right?
No, to be transport mission
Oh,
pilot.
to be transport mission pilot.
Yeah, to be CAP VFR pilot, you don't need, there's no minimum.
You just need a private pilot's license.
And the other
Yes.
prerequisite for CUP pilot is high performance endorsement. So you can get it within CUP, but you will be paying for the aircraft rental fees. It will not be part of the onboarding flight, so it's a prerequisite. So you have to get your high performance. You can get it done elsewhere. If you have a friend with a high performance airplane, go for it. It doesn't matter which type of airplane, as long as it qualifies as high performance. And yeah, so then once you complete the onboarding flights, you schedule a flight with a CUP check ride pilot, and you complete what we call Form 5. It's a syllabus, and it's pretty much like your typical check ride in a new type of aircraft you want to fly. Let's say you go to flying club, and they will have the similar process. It's ACS profile, which you need to demonstrate. And typically is not really every single maneuver included in the ACS. It could be specific, most critical ones. And once you do it first time, you get onboarded, you have to get checked out in every type of aircraft. So 182, 206, 206 turbo, and then on top of it, you do it, let's say, in a round dial, and then you have to do, after that, you have to do G1000 as a separate abbreviated Form 5.
That didn't work.
Oh, it worked, just went on default.
Well, it's supposed to be muted, but the mute didn't work.
And then basically, once you get checked out on every type of aircraft, next year you do one Form 5 annual on the highest aircraft. So let's say you have all 182, 206, 206 turbo, and G1000. You just find the 206 turbo with G1000 and get your annual Form 5 on that one, and it gives you an ability to fly all the aircraft under it. So 206 regular, turbo, round dial, and you're good for another year. So, any questions on that?
The check ride, is it broken down in the same as similar fashion that it has the oral portion and practical?
Yes, there is a brief oral or open book portion. You come prepared with a questionnaire about specific aircraft. All the performance characteristics, emergency procedures should be outlined in that questionnaire, and you review it with the check pilot, and check pilot will ask you a few questions on CUP regulations. That's 70-1 regulations. It's all available for public access. Pretty straightforward, and you don't need to know all of them, only part related to being a pilot on airplane. You don't need to do hot air balloon or glider parts, etc. And if you are not doing orientation flights, you don't have to memorize the specifics related to that. So key items to memorize is safety related, like distances while taxiing the aircraft, how you handle it on the ground, who you can fly with, who can be on airplane, should you wear the uniform, if people for other CUP members flying, do they have to wear a uniform, etc., etc. So it's pretty logical, based on mostly on common sense and little extra safety cushion on top of FAA requirements. Okay. Any questions? All right. Well, Roger?
If you don't mind, can I have about 10 minutes before you start?
Sure.
10 minutes? Oh my gosh. Okay, I guess so.
Well,
Do
9
you know
maybe?
how long-winded I
9?
am?
Is it 9 already?
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to go over some quick, go ahead, just lay that right there. Yeah. I just want to go over some show and tell stuff. These are yokes, right, off of a 182. I want you to see what happens when you practice landing incorrectly. These yokes fit right there on the aircraft, and you can't see them, see if they're damaged, until you take the cowling all off, and that usually doesn't get done until the 100 hour. So just go ahead and pass these around. And this is off of 2 different aircrafts. They're both 182s. 743, which is the one we have right here. This is the one we have in the hangar right now. And I think 851, which is I think Santa Monica's. But yeah. Now there's 2 different yokes, and they both have different size cracks because one was abused a little bit more than the other. But the reason why this happens is why. They're not landing correctly. They're landing on the front wheel first instead of the mains. You're supposed to land on the mains and then roll it over into the front, right? These have been landed more on the front wheel than on the mains, more than once.
The other thing, Mike, is that they'll bounce and then they relax the yoke and the yoke comes back down and then it really pounds into the ground.
Right.
If you just hold the yoke back,
Right.
well, you'll get. But that's the other thing. You'll see these guys, they hit,
Right.
and then they start nose down because they're relaxing the yoke.
Yeah.
You gotta keep it back.
That's why I said land on the mains and then roll it over to the front. If you look at the one on 743, Charlie Papa, it's got the most damage, but the firewall was not damaged. This one here. This one has the most damage on it, but the firewall wasn't damaged. But the other one has less damage on it, but the firewall was crinkled a little bit. They had to work on the firewall. Just so you know. So there's just a little show and tell that because I do the maintenance on the maintenance officer for Southern California. So I just had these on my desk this morning and thought I'd bring them over for you guys to see.
Yeah, a big difference of 182 comparing to 172, the front is very heavy. So it's like, it drops right away. It wants to drop right away. So part of your high performance training, focus on keeping the nose up as long as it takes, so let it go down easy on the ground.
You're done?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you are. Okay.
That was faster than 10 minutes. I know.
Well, I talk faster than my estimate.
I'm expecting to just be completely, 1 minute left. Okay.
We don't want to take too much of your time.
No, I'm long-winded. Everybody knows that. I'm going to try to make it short, though. Not so short that we don't learn something. Just pass these around. That's just, it's all one stack. This is what they call a gap form 160.
By the way, how come you had to fill that out?
I'd have no idea.
Did you fill
I
it
have
out?
no idea. I called Ken, and Ken said, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just going to intervene there and say, I don't think that you need to do that.
No,
Because
Ken,
that form is actually for an event.
for an event. I know.
Upcoming event.
That's what I said, well, I was told by my commander that I was supposed to fill it out and you wanted it. And
Yeah.
he said, do you have a...
commanders meeting, he did tell all the commanders to complete it for the squadron locations.
Really? Well, he said you could fill
Not
one out.
necessary.
Yeah, he said you could fill one out for the
He said
year, I
this-
guess,
well,
but so...
They asked me to fill one out for the upcoming Com 3 starts coming this weekend, and I didn't want to fill that one out either.
Yeah. Well, it may sound like I'm going to be talking about that, but I'm going to move on. But I am going to ask you a couple of questions. What you just saw that form? I'm going to ask you. No, I won't do that. I won't do that to you. It said deliberate, or what did it say on there? Deliberate risk management on top of that form. Do you know what that means?
It means voluntary assessment and
Yeah,
detail.
you could say that. Yeah, it falls in that category.
Right.
But there is kind of a overall picture of why it's called deliberate.
I'd say it's mandatory.
It's something
Other
that
than-
you are going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, an event. Okay. However, real time. What is that one? There's another one that looks just the same but it's smaller. What's the real time 160?
You have two of them? Is there two of them?
Yes, there is. There is actually another one. That's the one where we do an event where it's unexpected. In other words, boom, it's going to have, we get called now to go out and fly. then that's called real-time risk management. Okay, and if you think about it, that makes sense. Okay, it's real time. Okay, okay, we do this stuff. CAP makes us do it. Are people hearing me? Are they? Okay. Because I notice we got microphones everywhere. You know, you sit there and go, okay, we go through this, we find out we're safe. Okay, wow, we're in good shape, we're going to come back alive, there's going to be no problems, everything's going to work out. I was watching on YouTube, like we all like to go and do, and I was watching an aircraft accident that took place that just really bugged the living daylights out of me. I'm just like going, how in the world could that have happened? And basically what it was an airline. I don't remember which airline. I think it was one of the ones back east, but it was a CJ they were flying. And they were flying along normal. And I'm making it real short because there's a long story behind it. But basically, they had a low oil pressure light. We used to have the same thing on our Air Force planes, same type of thing. For the airlines, in their checklist, they pulled a checklist out. It said in the checklist, plain as day, that if the oil pressure on the pressure gauge says normal, then everything is okay, just continue on. The captain even said, oh, okay, so we're back to normal checklist. Okay, well, that was fine. Okay, there was another event that took place on the airplane that most of you, I know you guys that fly and some of you guys that fly for the airlines and stuff know that if there's an unrelated event, it probably doesn't necessarily connect to the problem you had before, but it could, you know. Before anything happened, the captain said, okay, we're going to go ahead, precautionary, turn around and go back. So they did. They came back and they made their approach, normal approach, everything was uneventful, but they were coming in a little bit too fast. I don't remember exactly why they were doing it, but even the NTSB was kind of wondering why. But anyhow, he wanted to do a go-around. Well, they start to do a go-around. Well, the plane immediately pitched to the right. And it not only pitched to the right, it went all the way over. It went sideways, went right into the ground. And there was some people that did survive it. The co-pilot survived it. The captain did not survive. Okay, now, and you guys probably seen these videos before. It's where they actually follow the whole accident investigation with the NTSB and everything. Well, the NTSB went in, they went in and they discovered, well, okay, they went by the cockpit voice recordings, everything seemed normal. They did the checklist. They did the checklist according to what they were supposed to be doing, and and the other problem that was with the airplane, I don't even remember what it was, but it was something that was actually unrelated totally, had nothing to do with it, but it led the captain to make this decision. Again, they said, well, okay, he didn't really have to do that necessarily because the checklist calls for normal operations as long as they had oil pressure, and the other situation really did not call for much of anything, but okay, he's the captain, he could turn around and go back. But then they came down there and they couldn't figure out why. When they went in and he started to do a go-around, the plane just went right over and just went right in and augered into the ground. They could not figure out how come that would happen. Well, they finally got back the parameters, because they had the cockpit voice recording, but like in the Air Force, we used to have a recorder that recorded all, like where the ailerons were and all that stuff. Well, they got that back, and when they had the original you know, problem with the oil pressure, the captain never said it over the interphone, never said anything, but pulled back that engine to idle. And they went, okay, the checklist does not call for that at all. Matter of fact, the checklist said just keep it there, but as long as everything's normal according to the checklist. For us in the Air Force, they wouldn't allow us to do that. If we had low oil pressure light, we were supposed to act like as if it had real oil pressure. Airlines don't, at least according to that checklist with that airline. And the checklist said, no, just normal operations. But he pulled it to idle. And, well, he flew in idle all the way back to the approach and everything. And then, of course, when he got down there, he pushed the number one engine throttle up, and the airplane just went like this, and they fought it, and they tried to get it back upright, and the plane went into the ground. I'm sitting there going, okay, why is it nobody, I mean, why did he do that, okay? Why is it the co-pilot didn't bring it up or say something? Do you think that that form would have prevented that accident? I'm bringing you guys into this discussion. Do you think if filling out that form would have had prevented that accident?
Well, if you filled it out right and everybody read it correctly and they took that information, you know, and used it correctly, you may have prevented it,
Maybe, yeah,
but most likely not.
probably not, yeah. Bob, how much your input? You flew the DC-10.
Airlines for Americans say all throttles work together. So there is a light, sometimes you got warning lights for low oil pressure. I can remember even changing a gauge to make sure we had oil pressure.
Yeah, we did the same thing, yeah.
You weren't supposed to, but it was,
Yeah.
took
Air
one
Force
screw and
does
a
do it.
plug-in disconnect, and you say, yeah, that light is not working to keep the thing running.
Yeah,
But if you get a low pressure and it's showing that you got low pressure, that engine's gonna come apart.
yeah,
So you've gotta shut it down.
yeah,
And then you're working all throttles. But you know, you got three engines, so you got one center thrust and then one on the wing.
yeah.
But that's on the DC-10. 707, there was a accident at Ontario with Western Airlines years and years
Yeah,
back in
I remember that very well.
1970. Early morning pilot trainer. Pilot trainers never were simulated. They were always in an aircraft. And captain flying, check pilot captain, captain sitting in the jump seat, engineer, three guys were in the back in first class waiting to come up. And he was shooting a 2-engine approach on one side, hand flown to 100 feet. That was a requirement in those days, still is. And went to a go-around, thing rolled over and went on its back. Of course, the JT 9D engines where, you know, you push the throttle, it was 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, it's beginning to spool up. It wasn't like the GE engines that had variable stators in them. So by the time they did that, they were already over 90 degrees and it just piled in just by the 15, just inside where the power lines are. Killed them all. So there's normally though, there's always a checklist and a discussion
Yeah,
between everybody,
yeah,
and you're always briefing on the approach, and you're always briefing on the instrument approach. If you're shooting an instrument approach, what you're gonna do. So that everybody was there, everybody was on side. And if somebody didn't like something, you stopped, discussed it, or you didn't even approach, you just broke off the approach and started all over again. So that was American Airlines theory.
for you young people, 707 is the first airplane that came, they were 4-engine jets, you probably don't even know. How many here know what an F4 is? Yeah, see, I'm,
Vietnam era.
we have people that came in and they just noticed that there's some, yeah, like this look, an F4, which was the mainstay of the Air Force and Navy for many, many years, and now we're getting a generation that has no clue what that airplane is.
You can stand
Initially-
on its
initially
tail
that was gun
at
pod.
90 knots and walk
Yeah.
on its tail like
Yeah.
Manned gun pods.
It had that much power.
They, yes. Well, anyhow, the point of my story is that what else is missing there? When you do this form, does that make you a safe pilot or safe crew member, or just do you think your mission going to be? I know that we all are very aware that, you know, especially if you get in a search and rescue, but if you go into taking pictures, doing all the different things that you need to do, we all know it's dangerous. We all know that we need to watch out for that kind of stuff. But yeah, there we go. There's the F4.
Developed by the Navy, bought by the Air Force.
Yep. I used to have those up at Elmendorf Air Force Base. Now they got the Raptor.
The one called Phantom?
It's a Phantom.
It
Yeah.
was the first, well, there was one other aircraft part of that was the Coke bottle effect. They found the Coke bottle effect gave it more speed.
How come it's only got half an elevator?
He got shut off.
Yes. Actually, those things were pretty tough.
I just got this off the internet, so sorry guys.
Oh, I'm glad you did, because we got to show. Man, I tell you, I never thought that nobody would ever know what that was. But we had a person come into our lodging the other day, and I said, you know, just the building you're looking for is right across the street from the F4, and I had this deer in the headlights look, you know, like, okay, and I go, do you know what an F4 is? No. It's like, and you're in the Air Force, okay. Anyhow, in this situation here, there's one thing that we do talk about, and we used to, you know, we call it, you know, this is risk management, and the Air Force used to call it cockpit resource management, and one of the things that, well, it wasn't one of the things, it was many of the things about that was that the idea is that everybody is supposed to be watching out for everybody else. What is a professional crew? A professional crew is a crew that acts like, no matter what position you're in, that know that 2 seconds or a billionth of a second after the pilot's, the scanner is going to die along with them. And of course, the observer and the pilot, of course, both go too at the same time. One of the things that we used to do, and it was right along with the professionalism, was the fact that I would bring up what we used to do in the Air Force when we used to fly across the ocean with wounded in the back of the airplane and land at Andrews Air Force Base. We land there at 11 o'clock at night. They'd offload all the patients, and after that was 3 hours it took about to do that. And then we were expected to fly from there to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And we used to sit there and we would plan out, okay, everybody get in their seats first, just like what the procedure is. But what we did is that we literally there would be the pilot, co-pilot, and of course in this case we had flight engineers, and then you had the loadmaster downstairs, and sometimes, and of course sometimes you have the loadmaster another loadmaster up front, and then you had another flight engineer. And everybody, when you called out the checklist, the pilot would touch the knob and everybody would verify it. we've been up for like, probably up over 24 hours, and had just come back across the pond, Atlantic. You know, how many hours it was. From coming back, it was probably about a 10-hour flight or so. The big thing was getting the wounded back, so they got into the hospital. But then that little flight that we took, one of the statistics is that I don't remember what the numbers are because I forgot to look it up, but there's more local flights. People were just going up just to shoot the pattern to get into accidents. Probably more than they do when they sit there and go out and plan out something from point A to point B. And that's one of the things we knew. Here's this little short flight, which took about an hour and a half or so. That could be the one that's the killer leg. And so everybody was very aware of that. And the professionalism, I got to tell you, the one thing about what I loved about flying for the Air Force was the professionalism. The second that checklist started, everything went professional. I saw crews walking. We would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's like, the typical, yeah, I like this and all this. But everybody sit in the seats. Everybody's just sitting there. As soon as the aircraft commander or captain would say, "Is everybody ready?" "We're ready." "Okay." Before starting engine checklist, and all of a sudden, it was just boom. It was almost like somebody just flipped the switch, and everybody just became professional. In that particular case right there, everybody was looking at everything that everybody had to do according to the checklist. The flight engineer read the checklist, and when the flight engineer read the checklist, we made sure the individual said, "Okay, set, check," everybody back. And they didn't have to necessarily verbally say, but everybody had to make sure that he did it, so that we got to Wright-Patterson alive. There was never an accident. There was never a case where anything ever came close to that. But I look at the case of this accident, this one particular one, and I could sit here all night and talk about accidents that not only have I read about, but actually happened to the C-141 people who I knew. But when he pulled back that throttle, even if he just pulled back the throttle, and then when it said everything was okay according to the checklist, he should, put it back. NTSB has no idea if the guy either forgot or was the co-pilot didn't notice, or did he notice and he just didn't want to say anything. They don't really know. It's just really sad, very, very sad, because you can do all the risk management stuff all you want, but it doesn't end when you turn that form in saying, "Oh, we're safe, everything is okay." It still continues. It does not stop there. And that's what you might call, there is a risk management that's called 10-second risk management, and CAP actually has a course on it, and how you do risk management in your head for a 10-second period. And basically, it's what we do every single day. And when you get in your car tonight, you are going to be using 10-second risk management. You may not be aware of it, but when you come to that red light or the green light that's turning yellow and it's about to go red, you will make a decision. Whether it be right or wrong or whatever, the consequences come out of it. If you're like, I see some people, who go through the red light and nobody happens to be there. But, there's always that chance. I had a good friend that he was okay, but the person that ran into him decided wrong. and plowed right into him because it was still green for him. But anyhow, that was another story. But it's the whole point of my meeting tonight is the fact that the risk management is something that we go through continually all the time. When we do our missions here and we actually go out and do stuff in a real mission, whether it be exercise or the real thing, you got to remember it's, you know, that form could lure you into thinking, well, we got that done, check mark, and let's go. But no, it's not. It continues. That form should be still in your head even after you take off or get into the van to do a mission or just to go home. Any questions?
How many people think that risk, or let me rephrase it. How many people consider risk management at home, and what is it? It's a very simple.
Yeah.
How many think about risk management when they're cooking? Do you have paper near a flame, or do you have paper near the stuff? No. Risk management says I gotta clear the countertop, so ensure that no one's gonna get burnt, the child's not gonna get burnt, or I'm not gonna spill something and cause a fire. That's risk management. So we do it constantly within our home. We do it in our automobile. We don't think of it as part of a checklist that we do in aircraft, but you're practicing it most of the time unconsciously. I got a nod from a cooker.
No, not a cooker. I'm always thinking about what can go wrong.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
times did you get the loaf of bread next to the flame and it shriveled up everything and then it melted on the stove? You know? I can raise my hand.
Yeah.
Our household's a mess with all the
Yeah.
grandkids.
My
anyway.
wife, she can't walk real well because she's right below her knees. She's got her tendons down here are really bad. And every single night when I go to bed, I'm walking down, going like this. You know, making sure because she fell one time and I wasn't at home and her one foot went that way, the other foot went that way. And she ended up in the hospital, not really long, but you know, because they, you know, that was another story, but she ended up injuring herself because of that fall for a long, long, long time. And I'm constantly thinking about that. And then, of course, how many of the animals? Cats. Yeah, kind of watch out there, too, because they'll have a tendency of being right there in the middle of the door, and especially cats. Dogs will do that, too. Dogs like, and of course, it depends how big your dog is. We had a friend that had one of those big, what do they call them? Well, I almost had it in my head, and no, it's bigger than that. It could be, yeah. I think that's what, big. When he got up, I mean, he literally put his paws here, and his head was right here.
Great Dane.
No, it wasn't a Dane. It was what they call a
Oh, Mastiff?
Mastiff. That's what I was. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, man, and he would come up there, and I'm not kidding. If you weren't prepared, he would just knock you flat on the floor, you know. And it's like, just things like that. My cat will sit there and lay right in the middle of the door. I've seen, when our dog, before our dog passed, he used to like to just come and run right in front of you. Just, you'd be walking down the hallway and just right in front of you. So get to know your animal if you have an animal. Get to know all that stuff. But anyhow. And I do want to see you turn in a Form 160 at your home, too. No, I'm just kidding. But anyhow, yeah. So I hope everybody got the point.
I got a couple of things for the people here.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Pardon? To be active in the squadron, what is required out of safety? How about a safety meeting? Is that required? How come we have people flying our airplanes without doing a safety meeting, even in online? I want to talk to you about this. I'm not mentioning any names. But we have this, the Navy has their programs. The CAP has their programs, the Army has their programs. It may vary a little bit, but there are safety programs. And even AOPA has done that. Bonanza Society, if you wanna take and go to their classes each year, cost you about $1,600. You get 4 hours and 2 hours, 2 days of ground school, 8 hours. There is a dinner thrown in and a lunch, but it's all about safety. And the more you understand the airplane, the better off you're gonna be. Systems, everybody thinks that all I gotta do is do the red box, which is the emergency procedures, what my limitations are on the engine, that's it. No, if you understand the systems, even though a Cessna or a Bonanza or a Piper has very simple systems, except for the electrical systems, which are all different, they're pretty close. And the FAA doesn't have anything that's standard. They allow the companies to come up with emergency procedures, but you need to take and understand how the system works, what my airspeeds are. One of these days I'll show you that what takes place when you do an overspeed on a flap, whether it's a 206 or whether it's a 172 or whether it's a 182. And you can crack it and you can warp the flap. And you gotta remember that the rod that operates a flap is probably a little bit, maybe a 30-second bigger than that straw. And if you're doing 5 knots over your maximum speed on a flap to try and slow down the airplane, you're gonna bend it, you're gonna warp the flap. And then what happens, that whole flap shifts, and next thing you know, they gotta pull it off and you've probably broken a bracket inside. Bracket gets pretty expensive because you gotta take the rivets out and it's riveted to the aft spar. It's kind of chintzy, I'll be honest with you, it's my own personal opinion with a Cessna. The flap track brackets for a Bonanza are almost a 1/4 inch thick. They're really heavy, and that's why you could drop the flaps at 154 knots in a Bonanza for emergency descents. You can get 5,000 feet out of that thing per minute with just flaps and gear at 150 knots. Power off and pushing it over. Cessna won't do it. Cessna will start coming apart. So you have to be careful, just know your systems. That's all we got.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, these, to replace one of these, Cap has to pay about $3,500.
Yep.
Just to replace one of these. That's not including any other work like firewall or anything that's bent, so.
Yeah, plus actual work. And since it's gone up, the prices have gone up probably about 30% in regards to December 31st, 2019. So it's getting expensive, and that's why when you see a 206, Cessna sells them to the Civil Air Patrol almost at cost at $750,000. And then you start putting avionics on it, so you're really just shy of $1 million for a 182 or 206. Pretty expensive.
Yeah, and Cap doesn't have an insurance company. We self-insure everything we have. So if something breaks or something is not done correctly, comes out of the flying budget. So, just so you know.
They
like
do
the,
have the option of collecting if the individual is really.
The doors that came open in flight on 437 Charlie Papa, they came open in flight, cost $60,000 to repair. And the aircraft was down for almost 9 months.
Yeah. So
And the airplane was only like 6 months old, so.
Yep.
it explains why COP has additional procedures on top of standard FAA procedures, is to protect the members of our organization as well as to protect our assets. We want to fly our aircraft safely. We want to give this aircraft as long lifetime as possible, so more members can enjoy it and more missions can be accomplished. So that's the reason we have certain rules we have to go through in an onboarding process, so every new member can understand how COP implements safety. And definitely it doesn't end with the completion of a form. has to be engraved in our mind, and we should work together with other CAP members when we fly together. We see something not right, maybe a checklist item was missed, say it, question it, and make sure it's addressed. Don't wait for it to snowball into the accident. Okay. And one more fun stuff. Today there was one of many WADS missions which was done successfully. I participated part of the backup aircraft spare, so we didn't do much fun. We just flew from Fullerton to Fresno, refueled and took off, and we were told to go back to the base. But the target aircraft participated in the intercept, and the Hybrid aircraft from Merced participated for communication support. So two people were flying in each aircraft at least. It's a mission pilot, mission observer, and optional scanner if weight and balance permits. And why, you may ask, why as you on board as a pilot you have to go through mission scanner training? I will tell you, not only go through mission scanner onboarding, go through mission observer onboarding, because you will get to experience actual missions sitting in the right seat, helping the pilot in the left seat with all the communications, looking for traffic, helping with cockpit resource management, and you get to learn how actual mission is being done. And you also help that pilot in the left seat with safety related matters by reducing his or her workload. So highly encourage you, don't stop at mission scanner before becoming a pilot, get your mission observer done. And actually I have flown on real missions as an observer, but I haven't flown as a pilot on any missions yet. But it's a learning process. It's something you can actually greatly benefit from. Another important thing to increase your participation in missions, once you reach the 2-year benchmark, like in your Civil Air Patrol membership, apply for counter drug endorsement. It doesn't cost you anything. You just fill out the form. It's being approved by the national, and you have to complete an orientation course, and you get to be engaged in a lot more interesting missions. So learning doesn't stop at Civil Air Patrol. Keep refreshing your skills. We forget things, go back and redo a class on G1000 every year or so, especially if you didn't fly G1000 aircraft. Enroll in water survival course. Once you get to mission pilot, get your mountain flying done. So keep learning, keep building yourself, and it will make you a safer pilot and safer member of Civil Air Patrol. All right. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
There's a comm exercise this weekend. It's a wing-wide comm exercise. I'm going to be mission safety officer trainee, and I'll be holding it here for Saturday. Unless there's nobody going to be using the comm room, if nobody's going to be using the comm room, then I'll probably just stay and do remote from my house. But I'm going to come in here on Saturday morning and do the base, which doesn't mean much. But if you want to participate, then find the form, fill it out, and see if they'll give you something to do. So
Yes, and
it's a good experience.
For new members, complete ICAT as soon as possible. It's real simple. Especially if you're already a pilot, communications are pretty easy for the pilots. Come and spend time with Mike in the comm room, get familiar with CAP radios and how we use them. And as you become mission observer, you get to use CAP radio a lot. especially if you get on a hybrid mission. It's a lot of talking and conveying the information from one aircraft to the base, or from the base to the aircraft, because the aircraft is not reachable via the standard radio channels.
Yeah, the mission this weekend is a wing-wide communication exercise, which means it from all the way from the bottom of California to the top of California. Supposedly, we're going to have 4 aircraft flying with hybrid, in hybrid status with repeaters in them, so the ground people can communicate to the aircraft, bounce it back down to get to other areas, and they're supposed to be able to transmit a message from Southern California all the way to Northern California with that
All the
method,
relays.
right? Just in case somebody shoots down our satellites and, you know, we don't have any other communications, we can do this kind of relay communication through Civil Air Patrol. Which, by the way, we've done in the big hurricanes when they wipe out all the infrastructure on the ground. We've done that before for the when was that last big hurricane? Katrina, yeah. I think we did communications for the state.
Yeah, but also the communication infrastructure of CAP is, as Mike mentioned, is a great backbone for incident management and disaster relief. Not only hurricanes can wipe out the system, our sun can send a surprise package to the planet and at least temporarily disable our standard communications. We can help in incident management from that point of view. If it's an earthquake and specific infrastructure can get damaged.
Don't forget those pesky viruses, you know.
Okay.
Any questions, anybody?
I think water, so also I would normally go to the communications one, but water survival's this weekend, so.
What's that?
The water survival training
Yeah,
is this
we'll
weekend.
be there together.
Are you gonna do that?
Yeah.
Water survival?
Yeah, me too.
Are they gonna have water instructors and put you in a pool and the whole thing? Great.
Yeah, in a
we're
flight
supposed-
suit.
We're supposed to wear our flight suits, yeah.
And boots.
Do you ever try to swim with a flight suit and boots on?
That's
I'm gonna
that's
do
an
it in my
objective.
pool
Be-
before I go.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Like a helo dunker type thing?
Mhm.
Or it's like a helo dunker type thing?
They don't have a helo dunker, but they're gonna make us get in. I think they don't think they have a helo dunker, but they have something that we have to egress.
I understand one of the tests is they have a 14-foot boat that's upside down,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to swim over to it, upright the boat and get inside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
supposedly there will be
That's not a fun thing to do.
there will be some equipment available. So
Yeah.
we're supposed to jump into the
If
pool,
it's anything like the Air
swim
Force
to
one,
the
yeah, they did that, we had
water
to do that.
survival device and turn
Yeah,
it
you-
upside down, get in.
Yeah.
I was gonna go to that one year and I never made it
No.
because of health issues.
Yeah, I'm
but-
gonna test it in my pool before I do it.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Take pictures, we wanna
There's,
see.
Make your wife take pictures. Invite me, I'll practice
They
with
they
you.
have security cameras, I'm sure I can
It doesn't
find
matter, even
footage.
if it's upside down.
Have your wife take pictures so we can see what you look like wet with a
Yeah.
flight suit on.
All right, David, did you have anyone on YouTube?
Okay, yeah.
We have George Takahashi.
Yes, and on Teams we had Maria. Okay, so good. Thank you, everybody.
And we have Mike Hubman, he said he's online as well, but he can't send any message for some reason. So he sent me an email.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, don't forget to sign the sheet.